What will you do when your money works for you? Welcome to the Resilient Investors Podcast, hosted by Victor, Kim, and Carolyn. At Resilient Wealth Planning, we empower clients to achieve a work-optional lifestyle, cultivating financial resilience against life's inevitable shocks and stresses. We are happy that you've joined us in the conversation. Discussions in this show should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult with your investment professional before making important investment decisions. Securities are offered through registered representatives of Cambridge Investment Research, Inc., a broker-dealer member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services offered through Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, Inc., a registered investment advisor. Resilient Wealth Planning and Cambridge are not affiliated. Okay, team, take it away.
So welcome back, everybody, to the Resilient Investors Podcast. My name is Victor Gaxiola, and joining me today again is Kim and Carolyn. And I'm really excited about today's program because after meeting the team, after episode 1 and 2, we really wanted to get to the heart of the work that we do here at Resilient Wealth Planning by talking about the financial planning process. And these are our two experts, Kim and Carolyn. So I want to start with the very basics. I'll start with Carolyn. Carolyn, what is financial planning?
That is a great question, Victor. Financial planning is really a high-level process, but it's the way I like to describe it is we use it to help somebody understand, like, where are you today? Where do you want to go? And how do we get you there, right? So we're going to look at all aspects of your financial data, make sense of what's going on, better help you understand, your goals, your values, and make sure you're on the right track to getting there. And through the process, we help make recommendations and implement those items. But before I kind of dive in too much, that's very high level on what financial planning is.
Kim, anything to add? I mean, high level, that was pretty good. I think that was great.
That's good.
Thank
you. Maybe you took what I was going to say in a different way. It's always easier to go first, Carolyn. But in a different way, I guess I would say creating solutions that are customized to what our clients need, and crafting creative ways to get people from one place to another when it comes to the wants and needs that everyone typically has, right? They want to maximize their money in order to live a certain lifestyle that they want, and they prefer to do it in a very tax sensitive way so that they are spending less on taxes and spending more on the things that they enjoy in life.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I like both. I mean, the way it's funny because I'll take it from a 5-year-old. So I'm going to take a 5-year-old perspective on this. And I've always thought of it as what Carolyn said is knowing where you are and then establishing like a destination. So I think of a road trip, and the road trip is going to take multiple paths to get there. And so I think of the financial planning process as I'm identifying that pathway from where you are to where you're going, knowing that along the way, you're going to have a couple of roadblocks and bumps around the road and such. And then me, because I do a lot of the investment management, I like to think that the vehicle you're using to go from point A to point B and the engine that's driving that's the investments in driving that destination or getting that car to its destination. So when we work with people, I mean, who comes to us? Like who is the primary person when it comes to needing financial planning?
Somebody with a problem to solve.
Or
Can I buy a home?
Challenge.
Here in the Bay Area, it's like, wow, I would have to sell all of my stock to put a down payment on a home. What's that going to do to my future? I own a business and I have a really big asset, which is my business, but how do I create an income stream that can help me enjoy life when I want to slow down or stop working? and be able to do that. The other area that I say we run into a lot is you may have a big asset similar to a business owner. You may have a big asset like your company stock that you've accumulated a lot, and you feel a little bit stuck because you have this great wealth, but you're not sure how to make that an income stream so that you can slow down and perhaps live off of it, especially when you may have huge capital gains to pay along the way. So those are some real fun things for us to solve.
I think a lot of people too might immediately think of financial planning be like retirement planning, right? And financial planning isn't just retirement planning. Like, yes, that is a big aspect of it, but really it can benefit, and I've seen it benefit a lot of people in their accumulation years. An inheritance comes along and you don't know what to do with it. Like, financial planning can really benefit those types of individuals too. It's for people in all aspects of phases of life, I should say. But like Kim said, you have a problem to solve, like financial planning is what's going to help solve it. But by providing that clarity. But one thing I will also say, what I love about financial planning is it allows us to be more proactive and strategic versus reactive. So while yes, we want to solve people's problems or help them through that, I would love people to learn more about the financial planning process and just kind of get clarity over their finances as a whole. That's a common theme I see often too. It's not just one big problem, but it's kind of like, okay, what's my why? And let's get on the right trajectory.
Right. Well, and you just mentioned process, which is really what I want to get to, because in the last couple of episodes, we talked about how the coming together of, the formerly Techro Financial and now the Resilient Wealth Planning into one unit was that there was a lot of best practices that came in that consolidation and looking at ways we were approaching our business. And in many cases, it was approaching towards, what software do we use, and looking at those processes, what is the best practices on how we come together. And I think the same thing is starting to apply when it comes to developing the process for financial planning, because whereas, Kim had her process and Carolyn, you had your process, they're very similar. I think they're probably a 90% overlap in that. So I wanted to talk through that. What is the process? So let's say somebody walks in the door, says, hey, I need a financial plan. Let's walk through, the multiple steps of what they can expect in that process. So I'll start with Carolyn, and then Kim, you can add your bit.
Okay, so yes, like you said, our processes are very similar, before we came together with this merger. But, if somebody decides, yes, I want to move forward with financial planning, we've kind of already been through that discovery process with them. We're going to send you, an onboarding questionnaire that we want you to complete to gather all of the data, everything. Like, we want to know everything about you. We're going to ask you for bank statements, credit card statements, all investable assets, social security statements, estate planning documents, employer-sponsored plan information. If you have anything related to stock units, we want it. We want it all. Once we have all of that, we're going to start putting your information into our financial planning software. And at that point, we're going to kind of meet again and review all of that data with you, right? And we want to make sure that all the data is correct, because there is nothing worse than building a plan based on inaccurate data. Right. And then we're also going to use that time to, better understand you, what your goals are, what your values are, just because that's going to help drive our recommendations when it comes time to build out that plan. So after that meeting, we kind of take our time and really kind of work on analyzing the data at that point and start looking at, okay, what are these problems that we need to solve, or what recommendations are we going to start working on? Maybe your question is, when can I retire? Can I afford a substantial home improvement project? How do I divest from an over concentration in a stock position, right? So those are things that we're kind of working through: tax strategies, cash flow, debt management, all that. And then we kind of start building out the recommendations. And after that, we're building the financial plan. We'll have a plan delivery meeting. And I think at this point, Kim, I'll let you kind of wrap up that process and add on anything I may have missed.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything. Oh, tax returns. I was surprised you didn't say tax returns
Well,
because you are the enrolled agent.
I am. We'll come back to that. We'll talk about that as an implementation
Yeah.
item, perhaps.
Um, so yes, holistic planning means we want to look at everything, assets, liabilities, taxes, cash flow, and just get an idea of the big picture first. And then, when it comes to the investments, that's a natural next step is to it would not be that great to create a plan and not have the vehicle that's going to get you on the road going there. And so, most of our financial planning clients become investment uh, clients as well, where we are managing their investments, is because it's the only way that we can really be on top of making sure you have the right vehicle to take you where you want to go.
Right.
And
Oh, you like the
investments. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I really liked your anecdote before, Victor. I meant to
Yeah.
mention that. You always have the best ones. But just kind of adding to what Kim said is, investments are a tool we use to support your long-term financial plan. So of course, during that financial planning process, we're likely going to build out recommendations on, okay, hey, we noticed this about your investments. We would do X, Y, and Z. And again, like most clients choose to work with us on the investment management side as well. And we use that as, once we get through the financial planning process, implementing those investment recommendations as part of the plan. And then to kind of talk about the implementation, like Kim had mentioned, the holistic approach. Like we offer, in-house tax return preparation for our clients. We can talk more on taxes in a little bit, and as well as the estate planning too. So we're really wanting to be a one-stop shop, and see things holistically, because it really all ties together. And if we can assist with that and make it as easy as possible for our clients, I think that's ideal. And then there's less room for like things to go missing, right? Or like we don't have to, it's great. It's like
Yeah.
it's just easy and convenient. So by offering honestly all those suites of services, it's
Well, and I should note on the on the tech side, I mean, I think what we're articulating here, and I'm getting from both of you, so to kind of paraphrase, is that a lot of this process really is getting that full inventory. And I like to think of it more as gathering a whole lot of data. So I never sugarcoat the fact that when it starts the financial planning process, that yes, there is a lot of heavy lifting, and it is going back and pulling a lot of records out or statements and gathering of documentation and data. But we help you through the process because we have a number of fact finders. Y'all met Christina, y'all met Caitlin and Lucas. So we have an outstanding operations staff that assists us with a lot of part of this process. And then another big part of it is, when you've got the fact finders, you've got all the information, the questionnaires, and you're gathering all this. Through the process, the two of you are also learning a little bit about the relationship that the client has with money and how they feel about risk and their risk tolerance. And so there's a behavioral aspect of it too in the discovery process. So, I mean, would you like to dive a little bit about how you use the financial planning process to learn more about the client, not more than just what's the black and white, the X's and O's?
I think I'm going to step in and try to answer this in a way. Sorry, Carolyn, you're probably
You're
excited to
good.
answer this too, but you can too. Once I was told, I did one of those personality tests, and they said you are your letters or whatever your personality traits were. You would be best in a position where you are a life administrator. And I thought, oh, that's kind of boring. But then I thought about who I am and what I do, and I go, oh, no, that checks. That's pretty much what we
That
do.
tracks. That's
We
what you do.
watch, yeah, we watch people go through life and help them, help them manage their assets in order to get to the point where they don't have to rely on a job for their income. And it's so interesting to see even in our lives when we are in our 30s versus what we do, what we think when we're approaching 50 and 60 and 70. At every age you have a different value on money and what's important to you. And so for us to learn that over time, Our relationship, our plans, it's not a report that we give you and end of day, close a chapter. This is like a living document that is changing as we go. I love to make plans not static, but something that we're constantly tweaking. So every year when we get together, we're making sure all the data is accurate still and making sure that your goals are still in tune with what we originally planned for. So it's really not something you do once, set it and forget it, but it's something we want to journey with you throughout your life.
That's exactly right. We find that in the first year of working together, there's a lot of heavy lifting. We tend to see our clients maybe like 4-ish times within a 45 to 60-day period. We like to just, onboard somebody, move forward, and like keep the ball rolling. And then at the 6-month mark, 9-month mark, 12-month mark, like we're doing check-ins to make sure everything's going well. If like, cause we tend to recommend like a lot of changes right off the bat, but we're there to help along the way too. And then like Kim said, like this really is ongoing. So it's not just that year 1 year plan. Like we want to, life happens, right? Like, so we're making updates at least annually or as big life events happen or occur. So we usually are working with clients on an ongoing basis. And just going back to the question of like, what are we doing to kind of better understand our clients? And I ask a lot of probing questions, and some people might not even know that I'm doing it, but it's like, I have my questions that I'll make sure I'm asking just to make sure, just to kind of see and get a feel for people's relationship with money, history with money, like what were money conversations you had growing up? Because like that really like sticks with us for the rest of life. And then when you're working with couples, especially, like they are very likely to have different money personalities. And I like to see how like those kind of meld together. Like a lot of couples like will do things jointly, but some do them separately, right? So there's just, different questions we ask along the way. And also then kind of tying in, making sure we understand a client's values and relating that to also investing. Like, is it important to, do more values-based investing? And so that's all part of the process. I love the behavioral aspect too.
Yeah,
but really, yeah.
There's definitely a lot of steps involved, and that's why I said heavy lifting at the beginning. But as we know, the best data in, so the more accurate the data in, then the better the results or the data out. And so what it does is once you establish a very strong foundation, which has come with this data for the financial plan, you've charted your path, you get a sense of where we're headed and what needs to happen on the investment side. Then, as you said, it just becomes a matter of maybe course corrections as you do your check-ins, once a year. But it also gives you much more confidence, I think, when it comes to making big decisions, because then you stress test it against your plan. And so that's where I wanted to shift the conversation next is, let's say someone has established a financial plan and they've been operating it, you've been checking in every year, things are moving along great. Can you provide some examples of how that financial plan has helped inform big decisions for clients, and how going back to the financial plan and stress testing that big decision gave them the confidence to either move forward or maybe take a step back? So I know you might not have been prepared, but I know that the two of you have at least one example of where that made a big difference. So, Kim, I'm going to start with you this time.
Okay, I will say that, foundational planning is so important. And starting with, are you taking care of your family if something was to happen to you? And, what if you couldn't even work? Or, what happens if you have to take care of a mom or dad and you can't work anymore either? And so I say it goes back to foundational questions and making sure, yes, you have a plan for the unthinkable things. Plans, people plan a lot for what they expect to happen, but what derails their plans are always what they didn't expect to happen. And so for us, sometimes we have to play the devil's advocate and really ask those questions. Are you prepared to be the sole income earner if you get a divorce or if you lose your spouse? Those kinds of questions start with a place that, everybody sometimes thinks about insurance, and some people are really risk averse, and so they love it. And other people love to take on more risk, and so they hate it. But, I would say that first and foremost, if I ever see something not go correctly or go well, it's like, it's a situation where you're like, oh, good thing we covered that ground, because that to me is that to me is something that could make people lose sleep.
So in my situation, I do a lot of like retirement planning, people in those pre-retirement years, about like 5 to 7 years out. So we do a lot of work, just making sure that they're prepared for retirement. What will that look like? How do they replace their income stream? And oftentimes people like get this, they have a very specific end date as far as retirement in mind. And, sometimes things come along where it's like, well, what if I lose my job early? Or what if my job has just gotten so bad that I need to retire, 2 to 3 years earlier than planned, excuse me. And that's obviously not part of the original plan, right? And so understanding like and creating different scenarios, we can kind of go back and say, okay, like, yes, you can make this happen. Or oftentimes what'll happen is a client will have like a very specific retirement target date in mind, and I'll be able to show them like, no, you can do this so much sooner, which is phenomenal. But like ultimately the client needs to kind of come to that realization on their own. So I just love being there to kind of show them the different scenarios, kind of be that guide, be that coach. And so, yeah, if something comes up that derails the plan or changes the plan, we can pivot. That's kind of the whole point, is that these plans, they're dynamic. The path, I'm just thinking like being in my 30s, the path of the plan that I have now is probably going to be very different in 10 years, right? Like, I don't know. Things change. Yeah.
They evolve and they change. And it's so funny because both of you are relating to the fact of things going wrong. And I can't help, I was smiling when Kim first said that, just because I keep thinking of that Mike Tyson quote that says, you can always have a plan until you get punched in the mouth. And then, and Mike Tyson would know going forward. So sounds like, I know what the process is like. I've been through the process, and I've seen you deliver the process many, many times. But I'm also very curious, for those that might be interested in saying, we mentioned taxes. I'd like to also bring up estate planning or big life decisions. So tell us how having a financial plan helps in those other facets of what I'd say your financial life, like taxes and estate planning. So why don't we start with the taxes with Carolyn?
Yeah. Obviously, you two know this about me at this point, that I absolutely love taxes and tax planning. And every plan that I build, every conversation I have with a client, like, will always have, like, be through the lens of, like, taxes, right? It's what will the tax impact be? And it's not always just about saving taxes, right? Like, of course, I find that a lot of people want to save money on taxes too, but we want to make sure that your tax strategy is also aligning with your long-term financial plan. So it could be about, okay, what makes sense from a retirement distribution standpoint, or even like, hey, I have an over-concentration of stock in a non-qualified account. How can we do this as strategic as possible so I don't have a massive tax bill next year? So, one, we can save people money, which is fantastic. We've executed that and I've seen it happen. But then also making sure that, those plans that we implement through tax planning, like, supports them in their long-term journey. So it really it all relates and it all correlates, right? And so, again, I touched on this earlier, where we really want to be proactive and strategic with taxes. And I do find on the tax side of things, like, a lot of people come to me after the fact. They're like, oh my goodness, I owed so much money last year. Like, why? And it's like, because we need to do tax planning like continuously throughout the year. It's not just an April 15th problem. It's an all year problem. So that's kind of my high level. Yeah.
So excited to have you as part of our team because of all this. And I think, we really have to emphasize there is trying to cut back on your taxes in 2025, and there is trying to manage your taxes for 50 years. And what you do if you're just managing for this year, may not be the right thing for the rest of your life. And likewise, if you're managing your assets because you want to just have a small tax bill you possibly can this year, may not be the best for your investments long term. And we've seen that
Right.
happen too. So, it's nothing is perfect. And getting people to understand that sometimes it's about, kind of a balancing act in order to make sure you're maximizing on your investments while at the same time being meaningful about what that is on a tax basis.
Yeah. And so we do the tax planning, as part of the financial planning process. But so you had mentioned earlier, Kim, that I am an enrolled agent in addition to being a certified financial planner. So, I am recognized by the IRS as a professional tax preparer. I can represent clients in front of the IRS if need be, but it's just a designation that I went after. I also prepare taxes in-house for our financial planning and investment management clients. So we do offer that service to our clients. Just again, having everything under one roof, and being able to, have your whole team kind of involved in every facet and nothing falls through the cracks. And so, yeah, taxes.
Yeah, and I mentioned earlier, we talked about taxes and I mentioned estate planning, but I think what I was really trying to get to more is that legacy planning. So the financial planning process, which now leads to, okay, you've prepared for your own retirement. Things, let's say, are tracking well. You're going to be okay. You're going to have enough income. So Kim, tell about the conversation that follows. Let's like leaving something behind, leaving a legacy, whether it's to a charity or, next your heirs or the generational wealth that you're looking to develop.
Yes. So this is an area that is harder for us to get our clients to open up on this topic. I think when clients are still accumulating assets, they think they don't have the luxury of thinking about this. But we also see on the flip side a lot of people that end up with these assets that can accumulate and be very massive when they start getting into their older years. And we always want to think about, what are your values when it comes to your money, and making sure that your money is aligned with your personal values. And so this really does take us into that legacy conversation. If I could start all conversations with clients in a way that would, and it's kind of a funny question, but we're starting to ask it more these days, is, if you were to pass away and your family was there to have a memorial for you, what would you hope they said about you? And that is usually a good question to have people start thinking about, what would they want said about them? And then the natural second question is, well, do you feel like you're living that life, that is an obvious thing for, your family to say about you in your liturgy? And, sometimes people say, yeah, some people say no. So the people that are not there and don't think that that those things they value and want to be remembered by, it's not very obvious, then, what's stopping you from starting right now? And I hope that that's a conversation starter to get people thinking more about leaving a legacy, how they want to be remembered, and how they want to use their money to help focus on things that are important to them.
That's awesome. Well, it's a good point. So to end, let's talk about next steps. So if someone's interested in getting started and they think, okay, or even if they're not sure if the financial planning process is for them, I know what the answer is, but I'd like to hear what your answers are as far as like what is the best
answer
approach? Really,
is.
just reach out to us through our website, send us an email, or just follow us on our social media platforms and just let us know that you'd like to meet, right?
All of the above. But we make it super simple to get in contact with us on our website. And we have a booking link where you will have the pleasure of meeting with one of the three of us to talk about our firm and our process and see if we're a good fit.
That's right. So if you go to the website, which is resilientplanning.com. There's usually a couple of prompts and areas where you can say get started, which will take you to the opportunity to schedule a discovery meeting. And as Carolyn pointed out, could be any one, three of us, depending on your schedule. So it's at your own convenience to see, to talk about, just to explore. And usually that first conversation is really more to identify whether or not, you are, I'd say, a candidate or someone that could go through the financial planning process. Does it make sense to go through that? Because like we said, it is a process. It takes a while, but we're more than happy to answer any questions about what you can expect other than the things that we talked about in today's podcast, as well as, what you can expect to kind of pay depending on the complexity. So there is usually a range. I think it is on our website, so you get a sense of what you can expect. It's definitely competitive, but it is worth the time. And again, there is a commitment part of it from your perspective, because once you get started, we are going to strongly suggest, I hesitate to use the word demand, but the data, because the data drives everything, right? And it makes that outcome of the plan so much better, especially increasing not just our confidence in the ability for the plan to deliver, but your confidence in the plan's ability to deliver. So any closing thoughts? Kim, we'll start with you, and then Carolyn, and then we'll talk a little bit about the next podcast.
Okay, so I like to tell people sometimes I think we are similar to doctors in terms of people worry about going to them because they're always worried about a problem that they may have and they don't even know about. And I also think it's very uncomfortable to take off your clothes at the doctor's office.
You don't have to do that. Yeah, we won't be asking for that.
Yes,
You can keep
but
your clothes
I will
on.
tell you that, having people give you your financial statements is like undressing.
Yes.
And it's very uncomfortable. And so, more importantly, you go to see somebody that you feel comfortable with, that is going to take a holistic, non-judgmental place to be. Everybody is in a different situation, and we recognize that. And I learn from my clients every day. And that's what makes it really interesting. It's not always like my way is right, because it goes back to your values. And are you spending your money where your values are? And that is the right way. I'm convinced. And so, we are approachable and we won't judge you. We just want to be able to give you the accurate information based on the data that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say.
I'll piggyback up. Oh,
go ahead, Carol.
Okay. Whether or not, I hope that after today's episode, people can see the value in financial planning, that it really is for everybody. It's not just for somebody who's, later in life planning. Like, it's really a proactive thing that's great for everybody. But we really want the best for anybody, right? And we want to make sure that we're a good fit. And so, we encourage people to do their research, meet us. Like Kim said, we're very approachable. We're very kind. But we want what's ultimately best for, the individuals out there too. So gonna do your research. That's what I got to say.
Yeah, and to close, what I'll add is, even Tiger Woods, the best golfer, probably had a swing coach. He had coaches. And so I think that, a lot of the people that we work with are brilliant. They're accomplished business owners. They're tech professionals that have achieved a level of success that means they get compensated well. And so, they're smart people to begin with. And so what they're really looking for is, in many cases, is coaching and guidance of people who do this day in, day out, who have seen a number of very similar situations. So I will say in our experience, it's not uncommon for us to hear an inquiry or a question or a scenario that we haven't already heard before. And at least we have some experience in knowing what the outcome was of the decision and the direction that we took. And so I like to say that we are, in the best cases, there serving as a coach, as a second set of eyes or a second set of ears, which is probably more important than the eyes, and being able to coach through, the situation, and for people not to feel alone in this whole exercise and process from the very beginning all the way through, legacy into the next generation. So thanks so much for sharing your thoughts today, and hopefully the people who are listening to the podcast or who are watching us on YouTube understand what to expect. Our process is also articulated. You can see it on our website, but we thought that this might be an easier way for people to kind of digest and understand exactly the steps that we take when we get started with it. So again, find us on our website, reach out to our team. You can also send me an email at victor@resilientplanning.com and be happy to get you connected with the team. So thank you, Carolyn, and thank you, Kim. And
Thank you,
Thanks
Victor.
for having us.
so coming up on the next podcast, we're going to go into a little deeper dive on our investment process, our investment selection process, and how do we make decisions as to what to invest in and how to find the right fit based on the financial planning process. So we'll stay tuned for that. That should be coming up shortly. But thanks again for listening to the Resilient Investors Podcast. We hope that you will subscribe, give us a review, and follow us on our social channels. But till then, we'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Resilient Investor Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. To get the latest updates from our team, please visit us at www.resilientplanning.com or follow along on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube.